Welcome back to Wargaming World and to the Chain of Command campaign game, Taking the Gembloux Gap. Right, just one or two things to say before we start. I have to make the assumption that if you're watching the game, that I'm assuming you're a Chain of Command player. It's fairly easy to pick up as we go, but I'm assuming that that's the case. And secondly, I'm also assuming that you are familiar with this particular campaign and you'd rather see the game played rather than me go into a lot of detail around it. But just in a 30-second summary, this is May the 15th, 1940. The Battle of France has been going on now for about 5 days. We've got huge German advances. But this is part of Belgium, and it's part of the defence line, which is held across between the Belgians, the French and the British. And this particular section, this fairly weak section, is being attacked by the Germans to try and punch through. So the game all the way through is really for the French to hold the line and keep the Germans at bay, and we'll see how we go from there. Okay, so this is the French platoon. One of the best things about playing Chain of Command, the campaign version, is the fact that we want to add a little bit of meaning to the figures themselves, add a little bit of character. So I'm just going to go through the structure of the platoon, but then I've marked out a number of different characters, added names to them, etc. It'll be fairly self-explanatory as I go through, but I'll tell you how we work through the game, the campaign and the platoon structure. Okay, before I go through the names themselves, the structure, it works like this, is that the French have two senior leaders in their platoon. This is their platoon HQ. We've got one main senior leader here, and then we have an inferior senior leader as a sergeant. We then have a small section which carry VB grenade launchers, essentially, and that's the structure of the HQ element. Then the platoon is then made up of 3 sections. So each section is led by an NCO, marked there with a blue dice. Then the green dice are the light machine gun team. So we have a light machine gun, 1 crew member with it, so that's 2 men, and then it has 4 additional riflemen. So that makes a small sort of subsection, and then that's backed up by 4 other rifles. So for each of those 3 sections, we then have 10 infantry, including a light machine gun and an NCO. Now let's go through each individual character. So number 1 is Lieutenant Hugo Lloris, 23, civil servant from Nice. It's an average sort and fairly unremarkable. The sergeant, which is ALLAN BLANC, is 26. Well, he was a car mechanic coming from Toulon, a man for well, the engine of any vehicle, a drinker and a fighter. And number 3 there, in front of the VB team, is Caporal Michel Henry, a waiter from Paris, charming, 50 years old, he's got an eye for the ladies, and he's unmarried. Okay, let's have a look at these NCOs, starting with number 1, and funnily enough, he's a sergeant, Nigel Chapman. He's 49 years old, and yes, he is an Englishman. Comes from Portsmouth. He's a bank manager here in France. Came across 20 years ago after meeting a girl from Le Havre and never looked back. Speaks 4 languages and has 4 children. Number 2, here's Ronald Dubois, 24, a waiter from Bordeaux, bright, a reader, an intellectual. Finally, number 3, this is Sergeant Victor Artois, factory worker, 48 years old. He's looking for the quickest way for the war to end. Now, for the first phase of this campaign, the first battle, The French have 7 support points, and therefore we've spent 3 points on an R35 tank and 4 points on a 75mm infantry gun with 5 crew and 1 junior leader. And finally, although we haven't got cavalry in this particular game, I'm going to use these as the patrol. So when we go through into our patrol phase, we can see that we've got the cavalry having a look out and seeing how safe it is for the French deployment. Right, so attacking the French is a German Schutzen platoon, and that's made up of 2 senior leaders here. We have a mortar in the background there with 3 crew, and then we have 3 identical squads. So we'll go through that and then we'll look at the characters in a second. So each of these squads has an MG34 light machine gun. So that's 3 crew, then has 6 rifles behind it, and an NCO with a submachine gun. So we've got 3 identical squads there that make up the platoon, along with the platoon HQ. Okay, so let's have a look at the German command. So in charge we've got Otto Mahner. He's only 22, but has been promoted through the ranks. So he's been in the army, an NCO, very young, and he's loved by the men, so that helps with a support point during the game. His second in command is Hans SEIGLER, who's 26. He's a clerk, a modest and unassuming man, but certainly a strong fighter. Now, on the 3rd red dice there, we don't have a junior leader, so our HQ command, our platoon command here, is just these 2 senior leaders. Right, so let's have a look at the NCOs. So first of all, we've got Lance GRIEBLER. He's a waiter from Essen. He's only 23, but his weight surely gives a good indication about how well he's been going on in the catering world. The second is Edwin Rhine, who's 27. He was a gamekeeper to an aristocrat in Berlin. Slim, very fit. He's certainly ready to serve. And thirdly, we have Philip Deck, who's 30. He is a model German citizen. Okay, so along with the main force, the Germans have got 10 points for support. So we've got a Stuka bombardment, and I know it's not a Stuka there in the background, but it's as close as I've got, so that's where we'll start. We have 4 points on an infantry gun, which is 5 crew with a junior leader. We have 1 point spent on a 5th colonist, which is the shabby Nazi trick. And finally, we've got 1 point spent on a medic, so that's the 10 points there for the Germans. And finally, I'm going to use the Fallschirmjäger for the German patrol markers. And so, right, let's start the game. Final note is that this particular table is 8 foot long, but it's only 3.5 feet deep. And that's the reason why you can't see the railway line at that end there. It does appear, as it does on the map, towards this end. So as we get to the houses, we do have the railway there, but it's not in this line, doesn't extend out onto this line. So yeah, we have the open field here. So yeah, challenging for the Germans to start off with, but let's see how they go. Okay, right at the start of the game, we need to roll for all of these buildings to see if they've been hit by the Stuka. And there's quite a lot of buildings here, so I've got 3 in front of me. Then we've got the 4th there. Ignore the sheds. And then we've got another couple, 1 in front of us, and then 1 right down the other end of the table. So let's just start with the 3 terraced houses. starting with the one furthest left, 5 and 6. No, that's not affected. Middle one, no, that's not affected. And the final one, yes, that's hit. So we'll do that in a minute. So we'll put a note that it's the one at the end. Then the farm building here. Yep, that's hit as well. Then the immediate building in front of us here. No. And then the building here on the end. Yes, that's also hit. 2 more buildings. The first one here. No. And finally, we've got this building right on the end here. So let's see if that one's hit. No, it's not. Now we need to look at the consequences. So let's have a look at this building at the end first of all. Let's see what happens to it. A 6 means that it has an unexploded bomb in it. So we'll come back to that in a second. Now the farm building. 1 means that it's unstable and it's also on fire. And finally this building. 1, it's also on fire and unstable. Right, so the farm building and the village shop, they're both on fire, and we need to understand which way the wind is blowing. So we'll say that north is the direction towards the railway. So it'll be a 1 in that direction. Let's have a look. So 6 means the smoke is actually coming across here in a westerly or northwesterly direction. So it's essentially going from the farm building across the railway for 12 inches. And again, it'll go from this building here across towards the end of the railway. Okay, so final point is that at the end of the turn we'll roll to see whether the fire is extinguished, but significantly is that neither of these 2 buildings may be occupied. Right, that's an immediate French setback, and we've got a lot of smoke coming now back towards the railway, and there'll also be an impact on the troops that come in. Not forgetting, of course, that we've got an unexploded bomb in this building. Right, so let's see how we go on in the patrol phase. Starting the patrol phase now, and the French start within 18 inches of the board edge. So we've got the 4 cavalry here, and going down right to the other end of the board, we've got the Germans starting off here with a 4 Fallschirmjäger. So the Germans will get, as the attacker, a number of free moves. So let's see how many they get. 3 means that they're going to get 3 free moves. So we've moved first with the Germans, but we're going to determine who moves next based on the force morale. And that's 11 for both. So as the Germans are the attacker, they're going to go first. Right, we're locked down here. So we have first of all, we've got the French next to this particular building, and if we move slightly along, we've got 2 German positions, German points. One here, which is just ahead of the building here, and then there's also one here just next to the telegraph pole. Moving across, we can just see that we've got 1 of the French cavalry here, the patrol markers, and the other 2 just there with the Fallschirmjäger here on the side. So then need to just set the 3 jump off points, and we go from there. Okay, so let's take a look at the 3 German jump off points. So we've got 1 in this building, we've got a 2nd over here just by the road, and we've got a 3rd right on the other side there, just by that A little bit of cover, some trees there. For the French, we come all the way back here, and the first jump off point we've got is here, just by this building. Second is inside here, inside this building, and the third is just behind the tree here, which was next to the village shop that was destroyed. You have to remember as well, from this point here, obviously they can't see anything with the smoke coming across from that building. Okay, so that's the end of the patrol phase, and now it's the first phase, which will be the Germans. Right, first phase, first campaign, first game of it, German phase. Okay, 2 3s, 2 4 and a 6. Okay, so with a 3 we've got the first squad in, who are on Overwatch. On a 2 we've brought in a team who are tactical, but they also have the senior leader with them, which was the 4. And then with the 3 we've also got the infantry gun, and it's also on Overwatch. The French roll, but we'll obviously have to factor in about the Stuka. Let's see what we get to start off with. 2 4s, a 3, a 1. Well, I do want to bring a section on with the 3, but I'm going to have to test whether I can, similarly to the way it would be if it was a pre-game barrage. So 1 2 3 and it can't come on, and it can't. With the 1 I'd like to bring on a team. I'd like it to be near enough, it is near enough to have a machine gun connected to that window, and it's the 1 that I've got. I could use that, but again I've got to see whether it can come on the board. Yes, it can. And for this team I also need to roll for 1d6 of shock from the Stuka. So that's 4 points of shock that's with them. Right, with a 1 I've got the team on the board, but I'm not going to fire. It's going to prompt the infantry gun to fire if I do, which is on Overwatch. I can't put this on Overwatch because it's only coming as a team without any command initiatives. So I'm going to pass it over to the Germans. That's the first point for the chain of command dice. A 1, a 4 and a 2. Right, taking it from 1, 2 and 4. With a 1 I brought in the medic. With a 2 I've brought in another squad. It's tactical. And with the 4 I've only used 1 command, which is to move forward the squad. So that now means that all 3 squads are out around this particular building, and also got the infantry gun as well. So all the Germans are deployed, with the exception of a second senior leader, and yes, we'll see whether that's going to be successful or not. But we're over to the French phase. Okay, so French phase. First for the chain of command dice, a 1, a 2 and a 4. Well, quite obviously the action with the Germans coming from over here is going to come across towards this particular jump off point. So I'm going to see if I can bring in some, well, an additional team for the first unit, and then an additional section and a senior leader. However, because I'm going to try, I'm going to also see if I can use the shabby Nazi trick as well, and I'm going to put a 5th columnist on this jump off point. First things first, I would want to see whether I could bring in the additional team. So 4 5 6 I need. Well, I can't for a start, so bring that out, and then I want to see if I can bring in an additional section. Yes, I can. Right, so I've got a 5th columnist, which means that with this section that wants to appear, I need to roll a a 6 essentially for them to get in, otherwise they can't get on the board, and they can't. So that means that section can't appear. With the 4, I wanted to bring on a senior leader. Now, first of all, I want to see whether I can bring him on at all. Yes, I can. And we try with the 5th column. 3, no, he can't. Is distracted by the 5th column. And that will happen each time when it's a 1, 2, 3. Only when it's a 4, 5, 6 will we get rid of this. This German interceptor. Right, that was particularly effective for the Germans, and we're now back to a German phase. And so 2 2s, a 3 and a 4. Right, not a great roll for the Germans. So with the 4, I've moved this squad up. Got 4 inches around about over the hedge, and I've also moved the medic up with the senior leader. With the 3, we moved the squad here on at the double, but we only got 6 inches, so we're out in the open here, which is a bad move. And with the 2 2s, I've brought in the other senior leader. Now the French phase. Oh right, that's interesting. So 2 4s and 3 3s. So it's going to be the French phase again, but it's the end of turn, and that means we're going to have a look and see about the unexploded bomb in this building. Right, well, with the first of the 2 4s, I wanted to bring a senior leader in from this jump off point. So the first thing is to find out whether he could come in at all. No, he couldn't. And in fairness, had I brought in the second senior leader, it would be to that building over there. So I don't want to do that now. So that's going to be the end of the phase, and indeed the end of the turn. So, start of the next turn, we've got to see whether this building explodes. So, see if the bomb goes off. It needs to be a 6, and it's not. The fire, is that extinguished in that building? 4, 5, 6, and it is. Yes, it is. And the same for this building here. No, it's not. Right, the start of turn 2, and it's slightly in the French favour, because now they don't have to be rolling to see if they're stopped, as it would be with a pre-game barrage. So right, 4 dice, not 5. This is a house rule once you have a second phase. So let's see how we get that. 2 4s, a 2 and a 3. Right, with the 4 again, I want to bring that on, but we've still got this columnist, so we need to roll 1 2 3, and the senior leader can't come on. Nope, but he can, and that means he can come on, and we remove this figure. Okay, so with a 2, we've got a whole section come out here, and the senior leader is going to order that section to fire, and then he's going to also reduce 1 point of shock from the machine gun here and order that to fire. I'll do that in a second. And then with a 3, we've now also got a section in this building, and the junior leader is going to order the team to fire there. So I'll work that out in a moment, just making sure that they can see in terms of the smoke. So the first fire of the campaign is the machine gun through this window onto this team in front of us, needing 4 5s and 6s. Well, that's just 1 hit. Team are in the open. 6 is a kill. Let's see whether it's the junior leader. No, it's not. Now the machine gun fires, and therefore the infantry gun is on Overwatch, which will fire with 6 dice, needing 4 5s and 6s. And that's 3 hits. 4 5 is shock, 6 to kill. That's no effect. Now this section, there's 15 dice. It's machine gun plus 9 rifles, so it's 4s again to hit. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits. Now I'm going to say that the section here, the squad rather, is sort of half and half. So I'm going to say 4, 5 for shock, 6 to kill. It's a mixed group, so therefore the blue dice will be the rifles. And that looks like 2 points of shock on the machine gun team. Right, I'm having a look at the team firing out of the 2 windows there. We're obscured by the fact that this building's still on fire, and as I'm looking across it, they can't really see beyond the front hedge. And so I'm going to say it's 4-inch visibility, so as a consequence I've put them on Overwatch. German phase. That's 2 for the chain of command dice, taking it to 3, and then we've got a 1, 3, 4. Right, with a 1, I'm going to start off with a mortar team over on this side. We're going to fire down on this French unit here. So I need 4, 5s and 6s. That's 1 hit. It's off cover, but it's mortar, so it reduces it by 1. 5 is a kill. Need to see, is it the junior leader? No, it's not. Realised an error as well is that this gun isn't on Overwatch anymore, and indeed neither is the team in here, because the turn ended. It hasn't caused any problems because ultimately they didn't hit anybody when they fired, but yeah, they're no longer on Overwatch. Right, with the 3, I'm going to have the junior leader order this squad to move at the double, and the senior leader is going to move with them. So yeah, let's see how they move. We've got 3 dice, and that's 11 inches. With this squad, the senior leader is going to order them to move, fire at half effect, and will reduce 1 point of shock. Now, I might put this out as a question, somebody might correct me on this, but I've moved the senior leader and indeed the medic with this section because they're within 4 inches. I did the same with the senior there. If that is wrong, then yeah, it's an error I've made, but that's something I think you can move with it if it remains within 4 inches. Has the danger, obviously, of course, of taking as a casualty, but yeah, I think that's the move. Right, okay, so this squad are going to fire at half effect. 7 dice needing 4s, and we've got 4 hits. 4, 5 shock, 6 to kill. The white dice are the machine gun team. 2 points of shock, and that's 1 on each team. French phase. And 2 3s, a 2, and 2 1s. Okay, with a 2, this section is going to fire on this one. The senior leader will take 2 points of shock off this machine gun, and it will then fire on this squad in the open. And with the 3 and the 1, I've brought on the R35. I need to have both dice for that one so that the so it can fire as well as move, and it can do here. So it's going to fire a machine gun again at this squad. So it's 14 dice on 4s against this particular squad. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hits in the open. 3, 4 shock, 6 to kill. Green is the machine gun team. So we've got 1 killed from the machine gun team, and we've got a point of shock on each team. Let's just check if it's the leader. No, it's not. 5 dice on this team here. We have we've got 1, 2, 3 hits. 2 on the machine gun team and 1 on the rifle team. Green dice being machine gun. And then we've got 2 kills, 1 from each team. Is it the leader? No, it's not. Tank this time, needing 5s. got 2 hits, green the machine gun, and 1 kill. Is it the leader? Roll that again. No. German phase. 2 for the chain of command dice, takes it up to 5. A 1, 2 and 3. Right, I'm going to get the senior leader here to order both squads to go at the double at this section, as well as for the third command is to take a point of shock off the machine gun team there, so where they can both move. When they do, the overwatch on this team, they'll fire, so it'll be 9 dice, it'll be a machine gun and 3 rifles through the windows there. And once that's activated, so we'll know there's somebody in that building, that'll allow the team in this building to fire back at it. It's not on Overwatch, but that's what we'll use the 2 for. In both cases I need 8s to get there with 3 dice. I'm taking a risk, but why not? Let's try it. So let's start with this group up here. Let's see how far they run. Do they make 8 inches? Yes, they do. So they'll get into combat, and the other squad, yes, they do as well. Right, so Overwatch is activated, so 9 dice needing 4s. That looks like it's 3 hits. So it's in the open. We're going to say 2 on the machine gun team, 1 on the rifles. And that just means a point of shock on the machine gun team, which is fine. Right, this is a small window, or a number of small windows in a tight angle, so I'm going to say we're going to have the machine gun fire and 1 rifle from each. I know it's a tight angle, but they'll say we can go out the window or something like that. But anyway, 5s is what we need. And we've got 2 hits. 1 on the rifle team, 1 on the machine gun team. The machine gun team is the white dice, and that's nothing because they're in hardcover. Well, this is going to take some working out, so I'm going to set this out and I'll come back to you. Now I'm going to do this, although there are 2 German squads attacking, I'm going to do it 1 at a time, try and make sense of the process, but I'll just talk you through it. So we've got 8 dice, because we've got 8 men. We've got a senior leader, which is 3 dice. We've got a junior leader, which is 2 dice. We have a light machine gun, which is 2 dice. I have another light machine gun, which is 4 dice. I actually have another submachine gun. I'm thinking about that because both the junior and senior leader have a submachine gun, but I need to deduct 1 dice because I've got a total of 2 points of shock. Right, so that gives us 20 dice in total. I'd also add there's nothing like Hangenarten or anything like that because it was the other senior leader who ordered this squad in. So we roll these 20 dice. It's 5s and 6s for a kill. 6 will be an additional point of shock. So at the end of that, we've got 6 kills, 4 of which are an additional point of shock. Okay, let's look at the French. So for the French, we have 9 men. We've got a junior leader. We have a light machine gun, and we get 3 dice for the amount of distance the Germans had to run. We take off 1 point of shock, which is the amount of shock. You take off 1 point of shock because we've got 2 points of shock with the French. However, at this point, you also get an additional 1 dice for every 3 for the light cover that the French have. So therefore, they're going to get an additional 5 dice. And therefore, in total, the French get 22. And at the end, the French also get 6, this time with 3 points of shock. However, we've also got the second attack from the Germans. With the second set of dice, We've got 6 men. We've got a senior leader, which is 3 dice. We've got 2 for a junior leader, 2 for a submachine gun. The other senior leader has a pistol, and we have 4 dice for the light machine gun. So in total, that gives us 17. Right, that gives us another 7, which means that the French have lost 13 in total. So we've wiped out a section and a junior leader. We'll have to see who that is and work out what happens in total in terms of a bad thing happening. Okay, so the fighting's over. I waited to ask a few questions out into the group. So we started again this morning, and it's a tornado here in the northeast, so you might hear the wind in the background. But so one of the things that I didn't do was to incorporate some of the shock for the movement at the double. So I've actually deducted ultimately 1 of the kills from the Germans. However, it doesn't make any difference in the sense that they killed 12 at the end and the French killed 6. So there's a few bad things to work out. So we've got things like a section being lost and a junior leader. We'll also need to find out which character it is. And there will also be a junior or a senior leader who's been hit here, and we'll have to work out who that is also and roll a bad thing as well. And we'll also see if there are some of the teams that are wiped out amongst the Germans. So both parties will have some deductions, I think. I do also have a medic at the back, so we might use that, but I didn't activate it alongside with these groups yesterday. So anyway, let's work out what the consequences are. Starting with the Germans, we had 6 kills. We've got 3 additional points of shock to put on in a second. Now we've got 4 teams here, and so there'll be a casualty from each of those teams. But because we've got 6 killed, we know that there's going to be one of the officers who's been hit. We just need to work out who it is. So I'm going to start off. If I roll a 1 or a 2, it's going to be a junior leader. A 3 or 4, it's going to be one of the 2 senior leaders. So it's one of the senior leaders who's taken a hit. So the next thing to do is whether it is the overall senior, which is OTTO. So we'll start there. So if it's a 4, 5, 6, it's him. No, it's not. It's the other senior leader. And so as a consequence of that, what happens to him? 3 means he's knocked unconscious. So I've taken 1 from the rifle team and the machine gun team here. With this team it leaves 1 man, but we're also going to take some shock here, so we'll work out whether they're pinned in a second. With this team I've taken a rifle and a machine gun team. Now the machine gun team is now wiped out, so that's a bad thing to look at in a second. So that's 4 taken out, and we also need to take 1 more figure. Right, I've decided to make it random, so 1, 2 it'll be the rifle team, 3, 4 it'll be the single machine gun team, 5, 6 will be the other rifle. I'll have to work that out. So 3 means it's going to be the other machine gun, the other member of the machine gun team from this section here, which means that team is also wiped out. And finally, and apologies for the granular detail I'm going into here, is that the rifle team, the remaining rifle team, has 3 points of shock, as indeed does this one. So I'll need to do the bad things happening. So it's 2 teams wiped out and a junior leader, a senior leader taking a wound. So 2 teams wiped out is -2, so it's a -1 for each, so the German's down to 9. And a senior leader wounded is a 5. I think that's a -2, which would take them down to 7. Right, for the French we have a section wiped out. There's a -1 and a junior leader killed. 3 is another -1, so they are down to 9. Well, as a consequence, the Germans have lost 4 on the force morale and the French only 2. However, it's all about the position, because they'll take up and occupy this area here, and indeed will take this jump off point, so the French will have another bad thing shortly. We're now coming to the French phase, but it's interesting thinking about it now. We've got a French team in this building. Do they want to escape, get out, maybe get across to the other side where it's, we've got another French section? But if so, they'll be exposed to fire from, well, certainly from this squad in here. We've also got the infantry gun down at the bottom there. So yeah, it's how to make this game secure for the French. Maybe they want to fire down on the Germans there. I haven't really decided myself, but it'll certainly be determined by what kind of roll we get now. So it's the French phase, and that's a good roll. We've got 2 2s, a 1, a 3, and a 4. Okay, it's been a good turn for the French there with the roll. So with the 4, I'm going to take 2 points of shock off the machine gun, and then the other order is going to be to fire the machine gun at the infantry gun. With the 3, I'm going to take the tank, so it's going to fire its machine gun at the infantry gun down at the end of the road. With the 2, we're going to have 9 dice, because the machine gun and 3 rifle are going to fire back at the building that fired at them. We're going to take them off Overwatch. And with the 1 and the 2, we've brought in a 3, so I have the VB team, who are also going to fire with half effect at the infantry gun at the end of the road. Okay, so start off with the machine gun firing at the infantry gun, needing 5s and 6s to hit, and that's 1 hit. And with I'm going to say it's got light cover, it's got a gun shield, so 5 will be shock, 6 to kill. It is a kill, and so we need to just check whether it's the junior leader. No, it isn't. Then we've got the machine gun from the tank, again 5s and 6s. This time it's 3 hits, 5 for shock, 6 to kill. 1 shock and 1 kill. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. Right, we've got the VB team, so it would normally be 8 dice, but it's only 4 this time, needing 4 5s and 6s. 1 hit. And no effect. And finally 5s and 6s, firing from this building. And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits. We're in hard cover. So that we have, so 5 is shock, 6 to kill. The green dice is going to be the rifle team in there, so it's 1 point of shock on the machine gun team. German phase. So we've got 1 for the chain of command dice, so that's now a full chain of command dice, and then we've got 2 3s, a 4 and a 1. Right, I've got a 3 down here, so I'm going to fire at the tank with the infantry gun. With a 1, I've got the medic, so he's going to come up and see if he can help the senior leader. First things first, the infantry gun fires at the R35. Needs a good roll, and that's not good enough. This is a roll for the medic to see how far he can go. He's got to get over a hedge, so it's only really 3 inches, that's not really very far. Right, so what I've ordered here is for the junior leader to take 2 leadership commands to pick up the light machine gun. So I've taken out 2 rifles and replaced that with the machine gun team, and I've done the same with the senior leader and also taken off 1 point of shock. So it's over to the French phase. So 1 more to the French chain of command dice, which takes it up to 2, and then we've got 2 2s, a 4 and a 3. Okay, so with the 2, the VB team, the section is going to fire the same target, the infantry gun. Same again with this section, it's going to fire up at the building. With the 3, we're going to have the R35 to fire its machine gun again. Bit of a combination with this one, with the senior leader. I'm going to take 1 point of shock off. I'm going to order the machine gun to fire. I'm wondering whether I can also ask one of the team to drop a grenade out, but because it's a single team, I'm wondering whether I can only give it a single order. I'll think that in the end. So Okay, so it's just the machine gun to fire, and I'm going to take the final piece of shock off. Machine gun needing 5s. And we have 1 hit. And it's a kill. Is it the leader? Is it the junior leader? No, it isn't. R35, same target, needing 5s. And we've got 3 hits again. 5 for shock, 6 to kill. 2 kills. Is it the junior leader? No, it's not. But it is the remainder of that section, so that's a support team out, and that gun is knocked out. Now the machine gun team here and the rifle is needing 5s and 6s. We just have 3 hits. 2 on the rifle, 1 on the machine gun team. Now we've got a kill, the rifle team. Is it the leader? No, it isn't. I haven't fired the VB team. I'm not sure whether I'm firing it on a 3 or a 2. And also the target's just disappeared. So I'm going to take it to the German phase. At this stage, I think the temptation is to attack and take this building. But I think there's very little chance of the Germans getting across and taking the other building, the other jump off point, and indeed we've still got a tank here, and I haven't even brought on the 75mm gun for support. So I think I'll look at a withdraw for the Germans. I just need to calculate whether that means it's going to take a risk of losing some of these men, but I think a withdraw is going to be the prudent thing to do. Okay, at this point the Germans are going to withdraw. We have the opportunity with a full chain of command dice that I could end the turn, and therefore the French would lose this jump off point and have to take a bad thing, and therefore they go down to a similar number to the Germans, but that's not really a great advantage ultimately. The Germans could attack this building, but I think they're likely to lose 1 junior officer, if not a senior leader, and as will the French potentially. But one way or the other, I don't think that the Germans can then take the other 2 jump-off points which are on the other side. Again, without the French still have a tank, and indeed have a 75mm gun to come on if they so wish. So we're going to pull out at that point. I'm going to allow the Germans here to withdraw directly. I know we are within 6 inches of the French, however it is for me a friendly jump off point for them, and in terms of the strategy, the French really aren't looking to fight and engage the French. In fact, my thoughts were to actually withdraw across the road, so now that they're not going to get hit by the German infantry gun that's been knocked out, that they would probably withdraw. So therefore I think we can safely say that the Germans can withdraw from this point. So this is how the game concluded. The Germans finished with 7 in terms of their force morale, and the French 9. So that gives the French a slight advantage when it comes to the casualties for the campaign. Now in the battle itself, the Germans lost 11 infantry and no officers. The French 10 and 1 NCO. Unfortunately, it was the Englishman, Nigel CHAPMAN, who was killed with the German assault. But at the end of the game, we've got 11 German casualties to the French 10. However, straight away, because the French have won by 2 points in terms of the force morale, we remove that 10, so we calculate out of 8 men how many will return and how many are killed outright. Right, so at the end of the battle, The Germans will lose 5 men permanently, and 3 will miss the next action. 3 will return for the next engagement. The French, on the other hand, will lose 4 killed permanently, 2 will miss the next engagement, and 2 will return, and we will also have a new NCO. In terms of the command, the Germans, in terms of the chief officer, commanding officer I should say, drops by 1, and the men's opinion will remain on 0. The men's opinion for the French again remains on 0 because they lost an NCO, but in terms of the commanding officer, it's to a +2. And so to close off, just a summary of the game. The French have been able to hold this end of the board, and I think it's been a real struggle for the Germans to make any kind of real impact. They concentrated all of the forces on this side, the German left flank, and although we engaged and took out one particular section, it didn't really make a great deal of difference, and the French still held this building, and in fairness, they didn't even need their support, or the full support, in order to hold on. Right at the start of the video I talked about the fact that the table was relatively thin, 3.5 feet by 8. I really don't think it would have been a great deal of difference even with a little bit more width. The original starts to this, when the Stuka attack came in, I think was very helpful for the Germans, and things could have been even more tricky if this particular building at the front here had remained. The French could have filled that with a section and got a good arc of fire. So I think in that sense, in the first turn, it very much was going the Germans' way. But we'll see what happens next time with the second action. Second time round, the Germans will have 12 support points and the French 6, and with a few casualties. Let's see whether the French can defend as well as they have here. Final point is just a thank you. Thanks to the Two Fat Lardies for the chain of command and this particular pint-sized campaign, and being able to run this and put this on the video, which is great. I've seen a lot of players play this campaign, so thanks very much for those who've come back with their thoughts, how they've played it, and what their views are. I'd really appreciate it if you could put your comments either on the YouTube channel, and for those who aren't subscribing, I'd really like it if you could subscribe, bring on that channel up to some good numbers, some great numbers. And if you're on the Facebook channel, which is the Chain of Command France 1940, it'd be good if you come up with your thoughts and suggestions about how this might have been played out better. Maybe I've got some rules wrong in the process, or indeed how you might suggest the Germans attack for the second time round. Right, okay, thanks very much for your time.